If you've heard the word reassessment lately and immediately started wondering what it means for you or your property taxes, you're not alone. Every 5 years, South Carolina counties go through a reassessment process, and this year it's Saluda County's turn.
Today, we're joined by Saluda County Tax Assessor Justin Ridgell to talk about what reassessment is, why it happens, how property values are determined, and what residents should expect over the coming months. This week on Saluda County Unplugged.
This is Saluda County Unplugged. We're shining a light, yeah. Saluda County Unplugged. Feel the truth come alive. Saluda County Unplugged. Saluda County Unplugged.
Welcome back to Saluda County Unplugged, the podcast where we break down local government, community issues, and the decisions that impact life here in Saluda County. I'm Josh.
And I'm Rachel. Today, we're joined by Saluda County Tax Assessor Justin Ridgell. Justin, thank you for being here.
Thank you all for having me.
So before we jump into a conversation about the reassessment, let's talk a little bit about what the tax assessor is actually responsible for.
Yeah, we're responsible for all the ad valorem taxation of every real estate property and mobile home in the county, which basically we value every property to market or taxable value, whichever one you want to call it.
So you basically look at the property and try to determine what that property is worth.
Yes.
Justin, I think one big question that would be good for us to kind of jump into the reassessment with is why are we reassessing home values?
The state of South Carolina and this South Carolina Code of Laws mandates us to reassess the entire county on a 5-year cycle, so we have to revalue each parcel at that time. In 2007, the legislature passed a law requiring us to implement a 15% cap on that 5-year reassessment. Therefore, that limits how much assessing officials can increase the taxable value. This has helped taxpayers tremendously because the real estate values have steadily increased over time. The last 5 years has been a huge increase per the market data. You can look online at listings and sales and see for yourself Saluda County is on the rise. I myself like to stay conservative because, after all, it's for tax purposes, but I also have to do what the state of South Carolina tells me to do by law.
Yeah.
You might want to follow that.
Yeah. It's very important that you follow the law. That's
right.
good. So this year we have delayed the reassessment by a year. Originally it was supposed to be done in 2026, but council passed an ordinance recently to move that reassessment to 2027. And we know that that was because of a staffing shortage in your office. You lost your appraiser. So do you want to talk a little bit about what y'all are doing to overcome that at this point? I know you've contracted with some folks to come in and help out.
Sure. Yeah, we've got 3 guys right now. It'll be a total of 5 on a rotating schedule coming in, helping on Mondays and Fridays, 2 days a week. And they'll help us with the reassessment process and day-to-day stuff, whatever we need. And they probably have 100 years of assessing experience between the 5 of them.
Now, will this reassessment affect every property owner in Saluda County, and will it affect them in the same way?
Not necessarily. It will affect them all, but in some areas, of course, there are going to be higher increases per the market trends, and your location is big on your market value for sure.
Okay, so we're talking about homes values going up. How do you determine a home's value?
The value of a home is determined by cost data and also comparable sales data. Mainly, we try to lean a lot on the comparable sales when we can. We don't have many cookie-cutter neighborhoods in our county, so therefore it's hard to do that in some cases, and that's where cost comes into play and depreciation depending on the state of the property.
So how important is it for residents to pay attention to what's going on during this reassessment?
Owners should definitely pay attention, not only for the values in the county and their neighborhoods, just to know what's in their surrounding areas, but also because any increase on a tax bill can lead to an increased mortgage payment if it's in escrow.
So after the reassessment is completed, what happens then?
Once we complete reassessment, we send out notices to let the public know what the new value will be. Of course, this is not a bill. It states that in bold letters, but most think the assessed value is the taxed amount, which is a common thing. That's not the case. The assessed value is either 4 or 6% of the taxable value. Those notices are also sent out to allow the owner to appeal, which they have 90 days to do so by state law.
So let's talk for a second about that 4% and 6%, because I think this is something that gets confusing to people. The 4% is for an owner-occupied home. So my home that I live in here in Saluda County, I'm taxed at the 4% rate. I also own a home in Barnwell, South Carolina, where I lived before I came here. I've kept my house down there, and it's a rental property, and that's taxed at the 6%. But what is that 4% based off? How is that calculated? So let's say I have a home that's worth $100,000. What does that 4% mean for that $100,000 home? I'm taxed on $4,000?
No, you would be taxed. The 4,000 is just your assessment,
Right.
and then that's multiplied by the millage. But there's a huge difference in the 4 and 6%. Since the state changed that because they do the school operating portion of the millage is wiped out.
Right.
So it's a lot more. It's confusing because it's a lot bigger than just a 2%.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm looking at it, the 4%. If I have 100,000, and for our listeners out there, I don't know the answer to this question. That's why I'm asking it. So I'm putting Justin on the spot here. But so my house, just to make the math easy, is worth $100,000. And so it is assessed at $100,000. But then as you start looking at the assessed value, you then take 4% of that. Is that right? So it becomes $4,000 is
Correct.
what my tax is based off of. And then you apply the millage rate to that $4,000, which means I'm not paying $4,000 in taxes. I'm paying whatever that calculation is. But the millage is based off of that $4,000, not the $100,000.
Exactly.
Okay. Because that is something that I think is very confusing for people as you're trying to understand this. And, millage in itself is a complicated thing. None of this is super easy. And, so we're all trying to understand a little better what all this means. But that's helpful to understand that 4% is literally you take a $100,000 home and instead of basing it off $100,000, you're basing it off of $4,000. Or if it's a rental property, you're basing it off of $6,000. But then, as you mentioned, the school millage and all that factors in. So it's much bigger than a 2% difference between 4% and 6%.
Right. And agriculture as well is at 4%, but it's at a lower cost. The land on ag is, hundreds of dollars per acre, not thousands per acre.
Right.
So it's
very interesting. As we talked about this, what is the one thing that you wish people better understood about the reassessment?
Well, it's not to increase your taxes just because we want to. It's been around since the 70s statewide. It's the county, and like I said, it's the council's responsibility to set the millage every year. We just provide the values on that 5-year cycle.
Right. Now, speaking of the reassessment not being done to increase taxes, can you talk a little bit about the rollback?
Yeah, what happens there is it used to be a 5-year rollback, which if anything that's in agricultural use, then when it's whoever changes the use of it to put a residence or a business on, whatever it may be, now we roll back 3 years, which is a calculation we have to do based on the market value versus what it was taxed at.
Right.
And like I said, usually if it's 1 acre, it could be $200 or $300 one-time tax bill. It's not a recurring thing. It's just a one-time thing that, again, has been around since the 70s.
Right.
And the state code of laws has been brought up multiple times to do away with it or drop it to a year. But luckily, it did come down some to help out, developers or whoever with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know also when this reassessment is done, there's also an adjustment that's made to the millage to keep taxes from just overnight jumping astronomically. I know there's some adjustments that are made there as well. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, on the millage, like I said, that's up, to administration and council what the county needs. But yeah, when there's that big of an increase in the total value of the county, then they have to usually roll back some.
Right.
And so it doesn't hit everybody so hard. It doesn't mean your taxes aren't going to go up just because, but it doesn't hit anybody as hard because they can't go up but so much.
Yeah. Well, I guess probably 20 years ago or so, Saluda County did a reassessment and property values did go up a lot. And there was a lot of concern amongst the citizens that property taxes were fixing to just jump an astronomical amount, but it's because nobody had explained that as the total value of the county goes up, the millage is adjusted so that there's not a huge overnight jump in what people are paying in property taxes. So I think it's important for people to know that. And then also one of the things we've talked about on the podcast previously is the local option sales tax, which is a 1% sales tax. This is not the capital project sales tax that we've talked about, but the local option sales tax is there to help offset the tax bills for property owners. So if you look on your property tax bill, you'll actually see a section on there that talks about the lost tax, local option sales tax, and it'll actually tell you just how much you saved on your property tax bill because of that sales tax. So those are all important things that factor into this. It's not just the value of the home. There's a lot of other factors that play into what the property tax calculation is.
That's right.
So,
And that 15%, the every 5 years, you were limited to go up on the value 15%. So that helped out a lot for taxpayers too, because like I said, that's when that happened back then. In 07, when that was put into law right after that 06 reassessment. So that was, statewide. So that helps out a lot too.
yeah. But, whenever you see your home value jump that much, it definitely is a kind of a nerve-wracking thing thinking that you're going to pay that much. But county government doesn't exist to tax people. Our goal as a county is to bring in enough revenue to provide essential services to make life better for the citizens of Saluda County. We're not here to try to bring in a bunch of money. And I promise you, if you saw what county employees get paid, you'd know there ain't no pockets being lined here.
No.
Matter of fact, the people are going to be too young to get this reference, but we could all be out flying our Hoover flags. Back in the Great Depression, that's when they pulled their pockets inside out because they were empty.
That's right.
But that's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to maintain the true value of the homes based off that, and to make sure that we are taxing things appropriately and fairly.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, Justin, thank you so much for being here. I know I've learned a lot today, and I hope that our listeners also learn a lot. It seems like this is a really complicated process. Your job seems very complicated. I'm glad that you do it and not me.
And thank you all for listening to Saluda County Unplugged. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to share it with your friends, family, and neighbors, and we'll see you next time.
Have questions or an idea for an upcoming episode? Email us at publicinfo@saludacounty.sc.gov.
And remember, the road to success is always under construction. We'll see you next week.
From the courthouse steps to the country roads, we're talking about the plans that shape our home. This is Saluda County Unplugged. We're shining a light, yeah, Saluda.